One disappointing note, Johnny Brantley apparently will not play today. John Brantley, a freshman out of Ocala, hit a defensive lineman's helmet with a throw yesterday, injured his thumb. So Tim Tebow will start out running the blue offense, and here we go. No live kickoffs in the spring game as usual. Tebow looks to throw, runs away from trouble, turns it upfield. Duke Lemons chasing him. And Tebow runs out of bounds. Got about 5 or 6 yards on the play.
And in all fairness, when you look at Tim Tebow's numbers, you know, one of the things that the Gators were much better in this past year was the ability to avoid giving up the sack, and that's because of his escapability. And sometimes that also adds into his rushing numbers, which, you know, sometimes he's just scrambling, getting out of pressure.
And there you see the rushing numbers, netting 895 yards, scoring 23 touchdowns. That's an SEC record. The combined rushing passing touchdowns, an NCAA record as well. Up the middle, Mon Williams gets the call. Mon Williams injured last spring on the comeback trail. Had a really good scrimmage a week ago. First time we saw some of that elusiveness out of the second-year player out of Texas.
Yeah, he really looked good last year, Larry, in this same spring game before he got hurt. Had a couple big runs, and right near the end of the spring game, he got a little banged up and was out for the year.
So it's 3rd and short. And they'll try inside. Not a lot of room there. And Williams fighting forward, got the first down.
Yeah, forward progress will give him the first down. And, you know, not a lot there, but a nice job of picking his way. You know, has to move back, trying to get back behind the block of his pulling guard.
Dustin Doe and Lorenzo Edwards in on the tackle for the Gators there. Is that Corey Hobbs with that block?
Big number 57, Carl Johnson.
Carl Johnson. Carl Johnson, a guy who's been fighting for a spot in that lineup. The Gators feel like they probably have about 8 guys ready for fall on the offensive line. They want to get that number up to 10.
Well, one of the things when you look at this Gator football team is the depth that they have been able to accumulate because of the amount of people that played last year. As they get the ball out to David Nelson, who, you know, last year wasn't given many opportunities, but with the opportunities given, he made the play.
David Nelson, 4 catches last season. He's another guy out of Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas, in fact. And that'll bring up 2nd down. Got about 5 on the play. Joe Hayden was over there defensively, along with Brandon Hicks. Talk about young guys trying to make a move. Brandon Hicks certainly qualifies as a strong side linebacker. He's had a good spring for the Gators. Little option pitch. Chris Rainey. Didn't get to see a lot of the burst from Rainey, but you saw the toughness to fight through a couple of tackles, spin forward, and get very close to another first down.
Well, this play looked good for a split second, but I didn't get the number of the orange defender that comes in and just blows up this play as he gets rid of David Nelson, number 40, I think that was. Brandon Hicks. I mean, he just came up like he was shot out of a cannon that time.
Hey, I talk nice about the guy, and he makes the play the very next snap. Pretty good stuff. First down for the blue offense. Goes deep for Riley Cooper. Cooper can't bring it in. Just inside the 10-yard line. Looked like he got him on the hands.
Yeah, he had Rickerson beat by a step. This is a perfectly thrown football, and Riley Cooper will be the first guy to tell you that that's a catchable ball. One he should have been able to catch, Larry. Good move at the point, and then nice little burst, gets away. Now watch this ball dropped in perfectly. He's just not able to pull it in, but a nice job by Rickerson of staying with the play, trying to pull his arm out of there. So good play by both guys. Just a case of the drops.
Tim Tebow's been battling some flu-like symptoms over the past few days with a high fever and such. We'll see how much he plays in this one. Up the middle they go. Rainey gets about 8. He's brought down by Dustin Doe, one of the veterans. Doe with 85 tackles last season for the Gators.
Well, one of the questions is, at Rainey's size, can he run between the tackles? Good job there, getting his shoulders down, you know, going forward. Nice little 8-yard gain by Chris Rainey. You know, he's a small guy, but Larry, he's a guy that once you get him in the open field, he can create some excitement. I had a chance to watch him in high school, and I'm waiting for that strength to develop because, as they say, size means a lot, but no one can measure the size of your heart, buddy.
Hey, what is it? The old phrase goes, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Chris Rainey's a competitive kid. Tebow looking deep for the end zone, broken up. Riley Cooper's having a tough quarter because he took a shot there, Major Wright.
But what I like about this play is the way Major Wright played the football. He never looked back. He just knew he was beat, and he had to make it up. Now, you'll see him come from the left side of your screen. Now, watch him come in there just as he gets there. Now you see him just explode through the receiver as Cooper's actually trying to come back. But just as the receiver goes for the football, he sticks his hands in there and really just lows the boom on Riley Cooper.
Landed right on his back. Cooper a little shaken up. Major Wright moved into the lineup for the Gators during the season last year. Ended up one of Florida's top 4 tacklers with 67. Had 1 pass interception.
But even more so, Larry, he had 4 forced fumbles last year. When you get a guy playing the free safety that when the ball's complete down the middle of the field, not only does he come up and make a play and make the tackle, but he shakes it loose, gives you a chance to come up with a fumble or a turnover.
Cooper getting a little attention as he heads off the field. And it will bring up a 4th and short. They're going to go for it. Ooh, early in the game. Kind of risky. Sure you want to give the Orange that kind of field position, but it matters not. Chris Rainey picking his way through traffic, goes forward for a first down with plenty to spare. Once again, Doe there defensively. Also, Terrence Sanders in on the play, sophomore defensive tackle from the Tampa area.
And I really like this call. If you're worried about the young fellow, the small guy being able to run between the tackles, once again, the key block is by Carl Johnson, and he just pushes him up in there, tucks in behind him, and gets the first down. Nice job of staying with the hole. Normally what you have with a breakaway back is he's trying to bounce it outside. That time he stayed in the hole knowing what he needed, which was short yardage to get the first down.
Let me clarify, Sanders from Bradenton Southeast, which to those of us not there is Tampa area, but Bradenton folks think differently. There's a nice run by Rainey as he cuts back twice and gets it inside the 10 for a 1st and goal.
One of the reasons that Chris Rainey was brought in here, he's similar to Percy Harvin. He has the ability to, watch him hit it up. Good block, good read on the block on Dustin Doe. Gets up inside, keeps his legs moving. Watch him twisting and turning, picking up additional yardage. This guy is a running back, a pure running back that has athleticism and tremendous speed, Larry.
And that was a fine block. Aaron Hernandez coming around with that block to create the big hole. And Rainey with 40 yards on this drive. But he's going to have to sit out a play because his shoe came off. And Mon Williams has checked back in.
Ran out of his shoes.
Tebow throws behind his intended receiver, trying to get it to Hernandez on a slant from the tight end being split out wide.
Now, this is an incomplete pass, but I sure hope we got a good shot at this because this was a good throw by Tim Tebow. If he tries to fit this ball in, it's going to be intercepted because they read the route all the way, and the cornerback was breaking in front of Aaron Hernandez. Ball's thrown outside behind him where if he catches it, good. If he doesn't, nobody catches it. Good throw by Tim Tebow of not forcing it in there, possibly giving up a turnover.
So it's 2nd and goal. Tebow with 32 TD passes last year, only 6 interceptions. On Williams inside the 5, driving to the goal line, and he's in. Touchdown.
Mon Williams at 6'1", 206 pounds, southpaw out of Mesquite, Texas, shows you that strength. You know, that leg's coming back strong. Good job of tucking in behind his offensive line. Great blocking at the point of attack over about the right side. And then just lowers his shoulder, runs over Dustin Doe. Actually, he takes 3 defenders into the end zone for the touchdown.
And Jonathan Phillips gets to make the extra point. And an opening drive takes up half of the opening quarter in the orange and blue debut. The orange and blue debut presented by Dodge. The Florida Gators wrapping up spring practice. Nice drive, mostly on the ground under the direction of Tim Tebow. And now Cameron Newton, sophomore out of Georgia, will go to work, and he hits Deontay Thompson. And Deontay, a redshirt freshman from Glade Central, goes forward for a gain of about 9 yards, and he has been tremendous this spring.
Well, I had a chance to watch him a couple years ago in high school, and he's another guy that can score from anywhere on the field. And when you look at Urban Meyer offense, he's looking for playmakers, and Deontay Thompson is one of those guys that if he gets the ball in space, he can make something happen.
Gators have had a few guys from Glade Central turned out pretty well. Lewis Oliver comes to mind, Ray McDonald and Ray Jr. and many others. Ball thrown out in the flat to Brandon James. James fights his way into blue territory and up close to the 45-yard line. The kick returner extraordinaire seeing a little bit more duty as a running back.
Yeah, that's another one of them little small guys that they say couldn't play in the SEC that just continually put up great numbers. I'm a big believer in guys that every time they step on the field, they got something to prove, and Brandon James does it each and every time he gets the ball in his hands, whether it's a punt return, kickoff return, or just catching the ball from scrimmage, or just a handoff.
Newton's third play, looks to throw, fires deep over everybody. Dorian Monroe back there as a safety, the closest to it. And it'll bring up a second down.
Real dangerous pass, throwing the ball down the middle of the field. There was nobody open, and he tried to force it in to Brandon James, who was covered. Those are the times, especially with that big frame that Cameron Newton has, that 6'5", 243, you'd like to see him come out of the pocket and try and save the play with his legs.
Newton almost gave it to Keyston Moore, then took it back. And he saved that play with his legs, I guess. Got 6 yards out of it.
Keyston Moore said, wait, where did he go?
They were like two brothers fighting over it at one point watching this play.
Well, when you've had a tendency where you fumble the ball a couple of times, you want to make sure. And that time, Keyston Moore trying to make sure of the handoff and wasn't sure whether he was giving it to him or taking it back, and he took it back. Oh, good.
Give credit for the tackle to Jeremy Finch, a redshirt freshman who got hurt in the Tennessee game last year. Pass incomplete, broken up. Wandy Pierre-Louis. Wandy's done a pretty good job, I think, nailing down that corner job opposite Joe Hayden, at least at this stage. A lot of competition at the cornerback spot for the Gators. For the first time in 4 years, they actually have depth there.
And that's something you got to have. You play a lot of nickel and dime in the SEC, and, you get guys banged up. So you need 8 to 10 corners that, or should I say defensive backs that can flat play. And depth is something that was sorely missed last year. Hopefully this year they'll be able to find that.
Oh, it's incomplete. Almost thrown right to Marquis Anderson. The corner on the play, so the blue defense gets a stop with some decent coverage and a couple of incomplete passes. We'll step aside. We'll return to the swamp with more. First quarter of the orange and blue debut on Sun Sports. There's a lot of improvement offensively to the tune of about 13 points a game and about 75 yards a game. We may end up seeing Cameron Newton playing for both teams before the afternoon is done, because they did not intend for Tim to play a whole lot. But as I mentioned earlier, John Brantley out after banging his thumb. Tebow makes one man miss, then gets the option pitch. And a gain of about 7 or 8 yards running right side for Chris Rainey.
I tell you, looking at Chris Rainey with that number, looks like it's number 8 on, reminds you a lot of Percy Harvin. When Percy used to wear that number. And the thing that I like about this young man is when he's running the football, there's no indecision. He makes up his mind and he explodes through the hole.
Creates a second down situation. Again, 5 wide. They run a lot of that. Sometimes a running back comes in motion to join Tim in the backfield, but not always. None this time. Tebow out of the pocket, fires and completes it across the midfield stripe, and that ball is caught by Butch Rowley. How about Butch Rowley making a catch? Rowley, who was actually about the 4th or 5th quarterback for the Gators a couple of years ago.
Well, the more things you can do, the better opportunity you got of getting on the field. As you see Butch Riley going up, catching the ball, over his shoulder. Tim Tebow has been extremely accurate throwing the football. He's had a couple drops, but he's putting the ball on the money this afternoon.
Ball at the 45-yard line. Rainey in the backfield next to Tebow. Tebow kept it, dropped it, got it back. And that ball is going to be picked off. It was juggled, and then Ahmad Black out of Lakeland gets to make the catch on the deflection, so an interception of Tim Tebow.
Well, this is not Tim Tebow's fault, even though that play had disaster over on it from the start as the ball was put on the ground as he fakes the handoff to Rainey. Nice job of being cool, keeping his composure. Now he puts the ball right where it's got to be, and as well as Butch Riley caught the first one, he dropped the second one. And Ahmad Black says, thank you very, very much.
Well, it's bad when you drop it down, but when you drop it up, there's a pretty good chance the other guy is going to get his hands on it, and that's exactly what happened there. Black, one of the 7 guys out of Lakeland that came to the Gators together last season. And you take a look at him over on the sidelines. And a big day for him as he got a chance to make an interception in the orange and blue game.
Well, he goes from the coach jumping all down his throat, getting beat as he was on that play, to being in the right place at the right time as the ball is bounced up in the air and he's able to make the grab on the deflection.
Tebow seemingly able to shake it off.
Well, think about it. He's had 3 drops. 2 that should have been touchdown passes, and 1 now that should have been a completion that ends up as an interception. So, he's doing what he's supposed to do, and, rightfully so. He's staying positive. That keeps his teammates positive.
So 1 for 5, 4 yards, and an interception. You don't think his job's in jeopardy?
Hey, not at all.
And Cam Newton back out there to go to work. More in traffic, nowhere to go. Host of defenders there led by Jermaine Cunningham. Cunningham, a guy they're counting on for big things. 6.5 quarterback sacks a year ago.
Yeah, he had an outstanding year last year to go along with his 6.5 sacks. Had an interception, 64 tackles, 12 for losses. He was the guy on the other side of Derek Harvey that brought it each and every down.
On 2nd down and about 9. And down goes Cam Newton. Carlos Dunlap around the corner. Pulls him down. Not supposed to hit the quarterback, but that's not really hitting him.
He just reached out and touched him, and Cam fell down. Great speed rush by Carlos Dunlap coming from the right defensive end position. He's able to beat the offensive tackle, which is Phil Trotwine, at the just off the snap of the football. Great speed rush that time.
Charlie Strong, the Gator defensive coordinator, had co-coordinator duties with Greg Madison, but Coach Madison's moved on to the NFL, and now Charlie has that title all to himself. Nice pass to the flat, and a nice job making people miss. Justin Williams out of Folkston, Georgia.
Well, he didn't get the first down, but I guarantee you the coaches will look at this and say, here's a guy that has the elusiveness that if we can get him the ball in open space, one-on-one. Now watch it. He just basically makes 2 people whiff. And, that's what you want, a guy that can make some things happen on his own. You're not going to always be able to throw the ball down the field for a touchdown, but when you can make defensive backs fall down or linebackers fall down trying to make the tackle, hopefully you'll get some blocks and you're able to get it into the end zone. But nice moves by Justin Williams.
There you see Justin Williams out of Folkston, Georgia. These are guys got a chance. Played a lot of special teams for the Florida Gators last season, and hoping to be in the wide receiver mix more this time around.
And even at the end of the year, Larry, if you remember, Justin Williams got some opportunities, got a chance to play a little bit. didn't get to catch any balls, but basically got some playing time and, did a nice job of blocking and doing whatever the coaching staff asked him to do while on the field. And I think that goes a long way when you talk to the receiver coach, Billy Gonzalez.
Now they're going to allow Chaz Henry to punt. I don't know if they're going to have a live rush, but I don't think there's no live kick return action today.
And if you're Chaz Henry punting to Brandon James, you say thank you.
Oh, look at that one. Lands at the 5 and goes on into the end zone. That's a 64-yarder for the Gator punter.
Just a great job by Chaz Henry of hanging the ball high. His coverage team getting down and forcing them to fair catch the football.
Brandon James had 5 punt returns longer than 22 yards. Florida opponents returned 5 for 22 all year. And that's a huge advantage. That's hidden yardage that doesn't get a lot of pub, but it really does help the team, especially if you're struggling defensively. Wide open. Catch made by Rainey. Rainey makes a man miss. He is gone. Touchdown, Chris Rainey out of Lakeland.
Wow. As I said, sometimes you might not be super big, but you make big plays. And there we saw the hands of Chris Rainey going down the sideline. Busted play. He ended up in open field and then just did a nice job of running with the football. Makes a defender miss him in the open field. Now, here's another shot. Now, he doesn't panic. You see the patience? Boom, I'm going up. No, I'm sorry. I'm not really going. And I was just trying to show you that I could go there if I wanted to. Now you understand, Larry, why I like that young man.
I understand why you like him. I've seen him in practice day in and day out. Chris Rainey is explosive, and this is a new dimension to the offense this spring, getting the ball downfield to running backs, getting those kind of mismatches that can lead to big plays, and indeed it did right there for Chris Rainey and the Blue offense.
And a great job of making the adjustment on the throw as the ball was high and outside. Did a nice job of maneuvering his body, making sure he's keeping his eyes on the football at all times, catching it in his hands, not in his elbows, in his hands, and then regathering himself and looking at the situation, making Ahmad Black miss him there in the open field to get into the end zone.
Rainey redshirted last year, as did a number of the Florida freshmen. So he's excited about the chance to get into the mix. And Florida does have a new issue, and that is they got a few more playmakers than they got enough snaps for. So they're going to have to figure out a way to balance this all out.
But just think about what it does to a defense. I got Percy Harvin on one side. I got Chris Rainey on the other side. Both of them can play wide receiver and running back. How do I set my defense to stop? And then you kick in Deontay Thompson. Then there's a guy named...
well, Cornelius Ingram. We haven't even seen Cornelius today.
Cornelius, who? Man, I tell you what, there is just a bevy of playmakers as we take a good look there at Chris Rainey. But, we haven't even talked about Carl Moore, who we won't see today, but junior college transfer, Riley Cooper. And the guy that really last year I thought that did a fantastic job that we also won't see today is Lewis Murphy.
Yeah, Murph caught 37 passes a year ago, over 500 yards, 5 touchdowns.
I mean,
the Gators got them some weapons. Cam Newton back to work. He's looking deep down the sideline. Very good coverage by Wandy Pierre-Louis on Deontay Thompson. And that's a spot where the Gators have to be better in 08, is in the secondary. They gave up an awful lot of passing yardage last year.
Well, and you got to understand, Larry, that last year these guys were true freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores. So you're talking about a very young group of guys that basically had little or no experience going up against some of the great talents in the SEC. So now with that experience, you'll see them play a heck of a lot better. And should be able to make some plays.
Nice little delay out of the backfield to Brandon James. Spikes and Finch make the tackle, but not before James has a nice pickup of about 17 yards.
Some things never change with me, Larry. Every time I see the ball going to Brandon James, for some reason or another, I got to stand up because I'm thinking something exciting is getting ready to happen. The guy just does so much with the football in his hands. He's so elusive that, he's exciting.
Ball marked at the 49, laid out to the field. That's John Jones, backup linebacker for the Gators. Position where Florida's trying to build up the depth a little bit behind Brandon Spikes, Dustin Doe. Inside run. There's Keyston Moore inside the 40. Moore fights his way to the 37 and picks up a first down before he's tackled by Dorian Monroe. We've got timeout on the field because the first quarter has come to a close in the annual orange and blue spring football game at the University of Florida. Tim Tebow has been sharp throwing it, and when it's been caught, it's been a big play like that to Chris Rainey. Here we go at the second quarter, the orange and blue game. The Orange not able to do a whole lot offensively, but they got a little drive going. Courtesy of Brandon James. It's Tate Casey in motion. He'll be a fifth-year senior. A reverse to James. And Cunningham sniffed it out. Couldn't make the play. Monroe gets a hand on him, but James ends up turning that into a 10 or 11-yard gain instead of a 10 or 11-yard loss.
Well, and that's why a guy like this, you've got to find a way to get him into the ball game from time to time. You've got so many playmakers. You have the beauty of being able to spread it out. I mean, this is a play that looked like it's not going to work. You got Cunningham, got him in the backfield, and then you got Monroe to think he has him stopped. He does a little stutter start and picks up the first down.
Brandon James, 133 rushing, but also 254 on punt returns and 841 on kickoff returns. So over 1,000 yards in all-purpose yardage for Brandon James last season out of St. Augustine. Little shovel pass, too much traffic that time. Emmanuel Moody, our first chance to get a look at him. Transfer from Southern Cal, originally out of the state of Texas.
And it's still getting used to the offense, because right here he starts to cut it back. You know, he's got a little room outside of Pouncey's block if he stays with the play, but he started to turn it up and then couldn't get back outside in the hole.
And why did he turn it up? Carlos Dunlap had a big old paw out there.
Yeah, but you got to.
That kind of got him changing his direction.
Yeah, you got to run through those arm tackles in the SEC if you're going to be successful as a running back.
Coaches have said Dunlap has freak-like skills. I think he can be a big-timer eventually. Short hop by Casey. He says he caught it. The officials say otherwise, and it'll be third down.
Well, and you know that you can't hit the quarterback, but that's the time that, you know, if this was a real game, Cam Newton would have took off and ran for the first down instead of trying to force it in. That time, you know, he was not able to square his shoulders as he tried to throw the ball back against his body and sort of short off it. Cam has not looked very good throwing the football so far. But there's plenty of time. It's going to be a long afternoon. As you say, he could end up playing for both the orange and the blue.
On third down, Newton with good protection throws it behind his man on a crossing route. Thompson, the intended receiver. I don't know if he had much running room, but mattered not. But throw behind him and fourth down.
Now, you know, what you got to get is some touch on throwing that kind of pass, and look like so far you have not seen the touch pass coming out of Cam. Right here, he's just sort of, he tries to pull the string on it, and in doing so, he throws behind it. So if he'd have put this ball on the money, Carlos Dunlap probably would have intercepted the football.
And the field goal is wide by Caleb Sturgis. Sturgis, as strong-legged a guy as you'll ever come across out of St. Augustine, has a work to do on his accuracy. But boy, can he kick it.
And look like we're going to get a do-over.
Mulligan. And that one goes through. Sturgis and Jonathan Phillips will battle for that place-kicking job for 2008. Phillips was the backup to Chris Hetland last year. Now we're going to get some more field goal practice as Sturgis will try this one from 47 yards out. Further away it is, the happier he is.
Well, and this is where you get that experience of a game-like situation with a full rush.
And that hit 8 rows up in the stands from 47 yards out.
Well, and Marquise Anderson ran into the kicker, you know, just for the fact that he didn't hit the first one, and of course they don't have to do this 3 times. But you know, this is where you get good, solid work. You get guys actually coming around the corner trying to block it. You know, it's good work for the the field goal block, as well as for the kicker, where he's getting a live rush.
52 yards out this time for Sturgis, and he's got him another one. And Urban Meyer waves, let's back up some more, because he had plenty to spare with that one. Into the stands from 52. And now he'll try a 57-yard field goal from St. Augustine High School. It's long enough. A little off target, but who cares? Into the stands from 57 yards away. We're going 62. Get that better. Will it get there? Just short. Would have been good from 60, but not from 62. We'll return with more action from the orange and blue debut presented by Dodge here on Sun Sports. The Blue has scored a couple of touchdowns under Tim Tebow, and Tebow stays out there. He may go all the way to halftime. I don't know what that was, but half the guys thought the play wasn't real and half thought it was. Let's go down to the field and check in with Steve Babick. Steve?
All right, thanks, Larry. We saw a very exciting play earlier with Chris Rainey. We could see what he could do. Another playmaker had added to this offense. Cornelius Ingram, I guess. CI, what does he add? And guys like that, some new blood in this offense, and already pretty potent offense.
Oh, man, you know, you can't say enough about Chris Rainey. You know, once he first got here, you know, when he came in, he definitely talked a lot, and, you know, everybody wanted to see what he was really about. And, you know, this whole week, you know, he's been hyped up. You know, he's been ready to go. And, you know, with the speed that he has and the explosiveness, it's definitely going to help us out at the running back position.
You were slowed down a little bit right now with an ankle problem, nothing serious. But how about your spring? How's it gone? And what have you been working on? What has CI tried to get better at?
Actually, my spring went pretty good. I told Coach Meyer at the beginning of spring I really didn't care if I caught a ball the whole spring. But, you know, of course, that was a joke. But, you know, I just wanted to come back and work on blocking, you know, being a lot more physical. And, of course, I added on a couple more pounds, you know, gotten a lot stronger. And, you know, I just came back to get better.
Good to have you back. We'll look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll look forward for him to catching some passes, too.
All right, Steve. Yeah, no receiver's ever telling you the truth when he says, I don't want the ball. I just want to block and run routes and stuff, right?
Well, it's good to have that personality that you don't mind blocking. But in the back of your mind, you like to catch a few to be rewarded for the great job of blocking you did.
And Mr. Moore was a tremendous blocker as a receiver for the Miami Dolphins.
But I also wanted the ball.
Yes, and he'd get one. After every good block, he'd get the ball.
It's like Gracie used to say, now when you open on that play, Bob, I'm always open. Even when I'm covered, I'm open.
Yeah, no receivers ever said no to that question. Riley Cooper catches the wide receiver screen, takes it upfield across the 40-yard line.
Fumbles the football as he goes down. Good job of running, but then not able to secure the football. And we know how Urban Meyer feels about ball security. You know, that's one of the things you got to do is you know, because you're a receiver until you get the football in your hand, and then you become a running back. So you've got to protect the football. You can't lay it on the ground, as we saw there.
Does it count if you get it back? It still count as a fumble?
It still counts as the time that you put the ball on the ground. You know, you look at this Gator football team, they lost the ball 9 times last year via the fumble.
And most coaches would say that's a pretty good number, but Urban would not agree with that. Well, it's anything larger than 0 is way too many.
Well, and also the fact that you lost it 9 times. That's not how many times you put it on the ground.
Incomplete for Hernandez. Picked off by Lorenzo Edwards. Edwards out of Orlando. One man to beat. It's Tebow, and no one would dare block him. So he hit the blocker. Tim Tebow takes on Major Wright rather than make the tackle.
Well, you know, the funny part about that, Larry, is that, you know, it's the spring. You are the Heisman Trophy winner. You're our future. You just threw an interception. Let him go. It doesn't matter. But because you are Tim Tebow, you just can't. It's not in you. And watch him go over. And on a play that means nothing, he's got a blocker out front. And if you're Major Wright, you really don't want to hit the quarterback. You know you're not supposed to take on Tim Tebow, and he lures the boom on you. I tell you what, Major Wright said, next time, Timmy, all bets are off. You know, they will not be laughing at me in the film room next week.
Oh, that's the funniest play in spring football history.
Oh, God.
The quarterback decides not to tackle, just gets a shot at the safety. Oh, mercy. I tell you one thing that we, on the replay of that we saw really good pressure up the middle from Terrence Sanders as we take another look at Tebow versus Wright.
Well, and you know, Major Wright don't want to hit Tim Tebow.
No.
You know, you just go get in the way, ward him off, and then Tim just explodes on you. You go, this is the last time I'd be a nice guy.
Yeah. Turn your back on the running back. We'll take time out.
God.
The Orange with an interception return for a touchdown from Lorenzo Edwards makes it 14-7. Well, the Blue offense has to go back to work. Tim Tebow, a couple of interceptions. One was not his fault. The second was as he threw high.
Tried to force that in, and you know, that's what you don't want to see him do, is try and force the football.
Option pitch to Rainey, turns it upfield, gets it to a gain of about 6 yards before he is tackled by Janoris Jenkins, a true freshman out of Tahoe.
And Larry, going back to that play, you know, that's one of the things that Tim was exceptional in last year, where he didn't force the issue. You know, whenever there was any kind of tough situations trying to fit the ball in, he pulled it down and did what he does best, which is run with the football and pick up positive yardage on his own. Only 6 interceptions thrown by Tim Tebow last year.
It's a great ratio, 32-6, better than 5-1 touchdown interception ratio. By comparison, when Danny Werfel won the Heisman, 39 and 13, he had a 3-1 ratio. And here's Chris Rainey and Lorenzo Edwards, and Lorenzo Edwards says, "Hey, Rook, don't turn and run the other way." Florida Gators last season defensively, boy, it was a whole different story from that championship team.
Yeah, this was a team last year that basically had no depth. You know, not only did they lose 9 starters from the championship team, but they also lost about 14, 15 players that were backups. So basically, you were playing pretty much a true freshman, redshirt freshman and sophomore football team last year, except for Derek Harvey, Clint McMillan, and Tony Jonas. So, you know, big difference coming into the 2008 season.
Gators will be a more experienced defense. They'll still be young, still be a little undersized. We'll see how much guys are able to grow and develop themselves physically between now and then. Dustin Doe delivers a hit, lost his own helmet in the process.
It's kind of interesting. You said physical, and that's exactly what we saw on that play by Dustin Doe, who had an outstanding year last year. He had 85 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 he returned for a touchdown. But we got pretty used to seeing Dustin Doe as well as Brandon Spikes making hits like that in the secondary or along the line of scrimmage.
That's pretty good sound effect. Nice work from the guys in the truck, giving us the sounds at field level.
Also picture-perfect tackling by Dustin Doe.
And I think picture perfect, your hat stays on, doesn't it?
Well, see, sometimes you forget to buckle your chin strap.
Well, after that play Earl Everett made in the championship game, Tebow gets drilled as he throws, and Lawrence Marsh says, "Sorry, Tim, didn't mean it." He ran over Rainey on his way to putting pressure on that time. And Marsh is another guy that can help build up this defensive front.
Started to get some action last year, midway during the season. Played outstandingly both at the defensive end and sometime even was moved in to tackle. And that's just a mismatch, him going up against Chris Rainey. That's where size plays a part, my brother.
I see.
But you did see Chris Rainey stick his head in there and try and ward him off.
Warded him enough that Tebow could get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
That's not a matchup they want to see a lot of in the fall, however. Rainey's got it, jukes a couple of men, takes it to the outside, inside the 35-yard line. Boy, he's got a gear that not many players have.
Well, you know, on the play before, we had an opportunity to see Lawrence Marsh use his size and ability to run over Chris Rainey. Now watch this move right here by Chris Rainey. Gets outside. Now, Where's Marsh? Oh, he's going the wrong way. You know, it just shows you that this guy has the ability to run inside. He's not afraid of the big linebackers and then he has the ability to bounce it outside and use his speed and quickness as he picks up another Gator first down, or should I say Gator blue first down.
72 yards running for Rainey in addition to a 65-yard touchdown catch. Here's Aaron Hernandez. He's knocked off his pins and goes forward for about 7 or 8 yards. Jaquez Rickerson in there defensively. Rickerson in that cornerback battle with all those other guys. Wandy Pierre-Louis, Joe Hayden, Marquis Anderson, the newcomers, Jeremy Brown, Janoris Jenkins, Moses Jenkins. A lot of guys battling for playing time at corner for the Gators in 08.
And nice job by Rickerson of getting down low, not taking Aaron Hernandez on up high, and taking his legs out from under him. You know, when you're only 5'9", 172 pounds, you can't be taking on a guy that's 50 pounds heavier and bigger than you.
Tebow fake, still has it, throwing deep left side, and it is incomplete. Cooper went up to try to get it. Wright was back there with Rickerson defensively.
A much better job by Major Wright, staying in the middle of the field, reading his keys, getting where he's supposed to be. It's a 3-deep zone, and he's right there. He goes up, doesn't play the ball exceptionally well. Cooper still had a chance, but he's where he's supposed to be. Makes it difficult for the receiver to try and make the catch. Earlier in the ball game, we saw him bite the cheese, and they had it over the top, and the ball was slightly underthrown.
Third down and about 4. Rainey looking for running room, finds none. Instead, he found the Gator defense, headed up by Brandon Hicks.
You know, when you look at Brandon Hicks, a strong side linebacker out of Jacksonville, Nathan Bedford Forest High School. Here's a guy that, you know, one of the positions that you're looking for some depth is that linebacker position. We didn't get a chance. We did not get a chance to see Ryan Stamper play today, but you know, that's a position where last year they were extremely thin, and they need some help there. And Brandon Hicks is showing the coaches that he's a guy that can get the job done given the opportunity.
Playing that Sam linebacker spot, he and A.J. Jones in the battle for the starting nod there, and Hicks seemed to move ahead a little bit this spring, although that'll be revisited in August. A delayed route wide open. Cooper to the 10, to the 5, and Riley Cooper sets up a 1st and goal.
Wow. You got to understand that you practice against these guys every day, and they say, hey, Rouse, you ain't getting deep, my brother. You're going to have to catch this ball underneath. We've seen Riley Cooper catch a couple underneath shots where he's had some space to catch and run with the football, and you got to tuck it away. Got it knocked out earlier, but a nice job of turning it upfield, going north and south with it after the catch. You know, if you develop a history of only being able to catch the deep ball, that's how the defense will play you.
Cooper's been playing a little bit with the Gator baseball team this spring, in addition to spring football action. It'll be interesting to see how long that continues. And boy, I think they'd love to see him get healthy, stay healthy 100% for a whole season, because, again, you saw his running ability there on that underneath route. He's a pretty good weapon, good size and speed.
And Larry, that last play, Chris Rainey, being the little scat back that he is, you know, that was an opportune time for him to bounce it outside. What the coaches are looking for is a guy that can tuck it up inside. That time he had the quickness to hop back inside and pick up 3 or 4 yards, just moving the pile, which is something you don't expect from a small tailback.
He goes over the pile that time. He got popped in midair, but he scored. And that's another touchdown for Mr. Rainey. 1 through the air, 1 on the ground.
Wow. Well, they're looking for, in this offense, a running back has to be able to run between the tackles. One of the question marks when you first, and what a shot did he take going over the top. But one of the questions about Percy Hartman when he first took over at the tailback position was, can he run between the tackles? And we had an opportunity to see Percy split it, going through, running between the tackles, and then being able to have the speed to take it the distance. So Chris Rainey has those same kind of attributes.
Rainey a star today in the spring football game for the Florida Gators. We've got 1:39 to go until halftime. And got a 21-7 score in the orange and blue debut. Trenches having to do a little extra duty there. You saw number 98 on defense, Troy Epps. Our first good look at him. The orange on offense. There's a pitch. Not much running room there. Marquis Anderson broke up that play, and Emmanuel Moody ends up getting run out of bounds for little, if any, gain.
Yeah, but it showed you the strength that Marquis Anderson had him in the backfield, not able to get him down. Rode him for as long as he could before he went out of bounds, but shows you the strength of the young man's legs. Moody.
Yeah, in the rodeo, that would have been you get like an 8.5 in the rodeo on that play, wouldn't you?
Well, Larry, I'm one of those guys that I look at all the positives, you know what I'm saying? So that, when I look at Moody, a lot of times it's not what he does that's going to be the success of the play. It's more the help he gets that allows him an opportunity to show his ability.
Cam Newton, not a great day for him so far today, just 5 out of 10. Under 50 yards throwing the ball.
He's had some drop balls, but he just doesn't seem to have the knack of the little dump off. How to take something off it and hit the guy in stride so he can run with it after the catch.
Third down play.
Hit it, go!
Finds a man in the flat. That's Thompson. Deontay Thompson looks to be short of a first down.
Nice job by the blue defense of playing a little zone. You got a linebacker sitting there, and as Dante Thompson comes in on a little crossing route, he's able to catch the football, but there's nowhere to go. Everybody's looking. They're sitting back in their zone, seeing the release of the football, and then just a nice job of attacking the ball carrier by John Jones. Weak side linebacker.
Jeremy Brown, true freshman corner out of Orlando, in on the tackle as well. On 4th and short, Newton will run for it. That's fun to do when you're wearing red. Brendan Beal popped him one after the whistle.
For the first down.
It's good to run a quarterback keeper when they can't hit you. You're bound to gain the yardage.
Well, what's the objective? Get the first down. You want to maintain possession of the football. And if you know the rules and they can't hit you, why not run it?
Brendan Beal, one of the freshmen who came in right away, enrolling at the University of Florida, out of Pennsylvania, wearing number 54.
Number 13.
That time the play goes nowhere as Carlos Dunlap messed it all up.
Well, the guy that I've read a lot about, haven't had a chance to see him play, is Matt Patchett, number 71, who gets the pressure right there. He's the guy that, forces Cam Newton to abandon the pocket. A former offensive lineman that has converted to defensive line, and they say he has a motor.
From Sefner Armwood over in the Tampa area and played both ways in high school, is expected to be an offensive tackle. In fact, wouldn't be surprised to see him end up there eventually, but for 08, it looks like he's going to be a defensive guy. There's Dunlap again, another sack.
Number 8.
You put Dunlap and Patchett on the same side, you got some speed coming upfield, don't you?
Well, you've got some speed, and if you're Cam Newton, you're saying this is not fair because, I'm trying to impress the coaches. I'm trying to secure that number 2 position at the quarterback, and I just don't have time to look down the field, scan the field, look for open receivers because I've got people in my face at the snap of the football. And we got started early on with a nice run over the right side by Mon Williams, carrying the orange defenders for 9 yards for the first touchdown of the day, putting the blue up. And then an outstanding throw and catch. Tim Tebow to Chris Rainey. Great run after the catch. Goes 65 yards, putting the blue up 14-0. And then Tim Tebow, errant pass, batted up, intercepted by Lorenzo Edwards. Got a convoy of orange defenders, which Tim Tebow decides to knock out. Major right for the interception, but return for a touchdown. And then once again, Chris Rainey showing you that he can run with the football, will run inside, goes up and over, 2-yard dive for the touchdown. The blue up 21-7 at half. And you have to wonder if those guys are not getting a little winded as well, Larry, being they're playing on both teams.
Well, we joked his last possession. Could I please have Phil Troutwine at left tackle? That's exactly what he got to start the second half. Nice blocking, opens it up, and there's Emmanuel Moody. Emmanuel Moody takes it to the 30-yard line.
And I know that's got to make the coaching staff extremely happy to see Emmanuel Moody does a nice job of staying in the hole, tucking in behind his blocks. Nice job of reading it. Nice little fake there, runs through on it, would-be arm tackle, lowers his shoulder. But north and south, Larry, no missed energy wasting going east and west.
So Moody with his best run of the day by a wide margin. And he gets another chance. Runs through an arm tackle. He's got 10, 12 yards to the 19 and another first down.
And I tell you what he showed me that time, Larry, the ability to start one way and see the hole and then bounce it outside. You know, this play looked like it's going to hit up inside. Now watch him tuck back, gets outside behind Johnson's block. And then there you'd like to see him stay inside and sort of split the defender. But, you know, he thought he could outrun the cornerback. But another first down for the Orange team.
46 yards on back-to-back runs by Moody. Puts the ball at the 19. The Orange offense yet to score today. 3 in a row. Moody to the 10. Emmanuel Moody didn't get in. They say he lost it before he crossed the goal line. And it'll be a touchback recovered by Marquis Anderson. And there's no replay rule, but maybe we can start one.
Can we get instant replay here? You know, the thing that you wonder about, let's go back and take another look at it. Does everything right. Now, right here, he decides he's going to go for it. But what he does is he puts the ball out instead of tucking it away. Larry, when you're going to dive like that, you've got to tuck the football. The young man does everything right, reads the block, gets a good block at the point of attack. Now, right here, see, he starts to try and do like they do on TV, and he starts to put the ball out instead of tucking it away. And a great hit. Looked like that was John Curtis and Brian Thomas, excuse me.
Brian Thomas, a young safety, trying to get in the mix, battling there just at Zephyr Hills in Central Florida area. And for Emmanuel Moody, 3 runs totaling 65 yards, but he ended up with nothing to show for it because of the fumble. Well, at halftime, special moment for that young man. Tim Tebow has been honored in so many ways. He gets another Player of the Year award from another group, but then something real special. Permanent fixture here in the Swamp. Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy. Tebow, the third Gator to win a Heisman. There's the first. The head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, won it back in 1966. Some of those other honorees, of course, Jack Youngblood, one of the original members of the Ring of Honor. Of course, Danny Werfel won the Heisman. There's Spurrier's recognition over in the southeast corner of the end zone. And then the southwest corner, Danny Werfel recognized for his 96 Heisman Trophy. So the Blue back on offense. Tebow continues to play. Maybe wants to run into some more guys. There's Riley Cooper on the slant. It's about 13 and a first down.
Even though Tim Tebow has not been as accurate here this afternoon, he's done a nice job of, I mean, he hasn't had as many receptions, but he's done a nice job of throwing the football and getting it on target to his receivers.
He's had a couple of interceptions, but both interceptions were tipped up rather than drop down. And when a receiver tips the ball up, bad things can happen. That'll happen on both of his interceptions today. From the 48, Tebow throws out in the flat. Short gain and a little bit of pain. Which Rowley makes the catch, and Joe Hayden, sophomore corner, comes through.
And what a great job Joe Hayden did last year as, you know, he came in and got thrusted into the position of being a cornerback. Had an outstanding year, had 63 tackles, 1 interception, but a nice job there holding off the corner route and then reacting up on Butch Riley to make the tackle.
Hayden out of Maryland. You see the 63 tackles among the Gator leaders. Wide open, Hernandez inside the 35-yard line, run out of bounds by Jacques Richardson around the 32 or 33. Hernandez, a guy who caught 9 passes a year ago, but he's going to be much more of a part of this offense. You've seen him throw a couple of really nice blocks on running plays, and he's a guy that's hard to handle out there in the secondary as well.
Well, you get so worried about those speedy receivers that all of a sudden you get CI and you get Aaron Hernandez in the ball game on those dragging routes across the middle, but both of them have enough speed to actually go through the middle deep. So outstanding weapons that will be at the disposal of Tim Tebow.
Tebow throwing deep for Rainey, not this time. And Ahmad Black, who was victimized by that move Rainey made on the touchdown catch, got a chance to deliver a lick that time.
But I tell you, once again, outstanding throw by Tim Tebow. This is a ball that, you know, as Chris Rainey becomes more effective and get used to being a wide receiver, he would have given ground and it would have been a perfect throw. He would have took a shot, but he would have took a shot while catching a touchdown pass.
Tim Tebow threw it to the outside, and Chris didn't really go that way.
Well, Chris looked like a running back that time, trying to be a receiver instead of a receiver that understands how to give a little ground to get to the football.
How much did they use that phrase on you early in your pro career? Because you were a running back in college.
Well, I had a guy named Paul Warfield that took me from his wing kind of early, and I became a quick study. I was like a sponge. I just soaked up any and everything he told me.
Not a bad mentor, huh?
Not at all. One of the best to ever do it.
Then, I mean, no one ever ran better routes than Paul Warfield.
And no one still has. Another outstanding throw by Tim Tebow to David Nelson. Nice job by David Nelson working the sideline, making sure he gets his feet in bounds before he goes out on the catch.
Nelson at 6'5" could really become a weapon for the Gators this year in the short yardage situations down around the goal line. Play a little jump ball when you have to. Tebow decided to run with it, but too many defenders in the neighborhood and ends up losing a yard or two.
Good pressure by Torrey Davis right up the middle, forced Tim Tebow to pull it down, and a little spin move to get out of the get away from the pressure, so I say. But you know, this defensive line really look like they've got a motor going. You know, we've seen some young guys, Matt Patchen, Marsh, Sanders. I mean, a bunch of guys that really last year you didn't expect a whole lot of them.
And they're going up against a very good offensive line, so they're really being challenged to raise their play. Wide receiver screen, and there you see Torrey Davis helping to double back. Lorenzo Edwards make the tackle, but I love the effort of Davis on that wide receiver screen to get back there defensively.
Well, I think, Larry, and they, you know, you've always been told that competition makes everybody a better player. And what you're seeing right now, they see ball, they're getting downfield, they're trying to get back into the play, where in the past, when you're the only guy or you secure your position, when you can't make the play, you don't hustle as much. Well, to stay on the field, you've got to show Coach McCartney that you want to play, and you're going to give it your all each and every time the ball is snapped.
Tebow is sacked. The first guy to touch him was Joey Howard, and he didn't get the whistle, and Terrence Sanders did. Howard out of Orlando. Interesting, he's a defensive end for the Gators. His dad's a high school basketball coach, won some state titles.
Yeah, but there you see him just do a nice job. You see him come around the corner. He drops that inside shoulder so that the tackle's not able to get an arm on him, and he comes clean right in the face of Tim Tebow.
Joey, just a redshirt freshman. He's still growing into that frame, listed at 6'3", 262.
A lot of speed, Larry, along that defensive line position.
Went to Jones High School in Orlando. Towards the end zone, Cooper. Did he make the catch? He did, and they give him a touchdown. Little late signal, but he'll take it. And Riley Cooper's got a score.
Now this ball is what you call a perfect throw. And Tim Tebow has been trying to get him on the board all afternoon. Finally able to get him on the board. This is a perfect throw on a slant route. Great coverage there. I think that was Joe Hayton on the coverage. But, you know, when you get a perfectly thrown football, there's nothing you can do if you're the cornerback.
Hey, see how that left knee hit. So if we had replay, we might be able to put that ball short of the goal line. You never know. But we won't find out. 4:21 on the clock. We're in the third quarter. The orange and blue debut for the University of Florida, the spring football game. And it's a 28-7 score. Blue offense with 4 TDs.
Obviously, Chris Rainey had a big first half and really had some impressive big plays. Mon Williams had that early touchdown run, but Emmanuel Moody was pretty quiet until the second half. He had some big runs up until that fumble.
There you see Kenny Carter was at Vanderbilt for the last 4 seasons. Now the running backs coach for the Florida Gators. Has 1 year of SEC experience, actually coached defensively at LSU in 1999, but 4 years at Vandy. You remember Cason Jackson Garrison, the fine running back at Vanderbilt. He tutored him for the past few years. Cameron Newton gets popped by Brendan Beal, but Emmanuel Moody reverses field and turns nothing into about a 15-yard gain, and they're going to tack on 15 more as Beal got his second shot at a guy in a red shirt and took it and is going to pay for it this time.
Well, Larry, what I like about this play, forget about the penalty, but what I like about this play here is the ability of Emmanuel Moody to make people miss, but the acceleration and speed that he possessed that allows him to get outside and pick up a first down.
So give him 15. I guess they're not going to bother marking off the penalty, but Beal will get an earful. You don't want your linebackers throwing your quarterbacks to the ground during a scrimmage game. Thrown into the dirt that time by Newton. Incomplete pass. Cameron Newton working on a tough day today, trying to get something going in the downfield passing game. He has thrown for just over 50 yards this afternoon, and shame we didn't get to see John Brantley out there seeing what he could do, because Brantley has had some really good days during spring practice, but an injured thumb keeping him on the sideline today.
Well, it has to hurt Cam Newton if you're him, because all of a sudden here's a chance to really take hold of that number 2 position at the quarterback position, and you're struggling. It just doesn't look like his mechanics are working for him this afternoon. Here's a good look at John Brantley with that big cast, or should I say wrap on his right hand.
Yeah, banged it on a defensive player's helmet just the other day. Johnny out of Ocala, Florida.
Yeah. Trinity Catholic.
That's right. His dad's now going to coach down there, and of course his uncle Scott, a great linebacker for the Gators.
A little family tradition.
Inside run, no room there for Moody. Earl O'Kine and Matt Patchen, 2 true freshmen who just enrolled. Patchen from Seffner Armwood, O'Kine, number 91, you see there, from Gainesville High School. So he transferred about 17 blocks. Straight down 13th Street.
Well, 4th down, and the Orange is going to go for it.
Well, I think you have to, down 3 touchdowns.
What do you think? Still the 3rd quarter.
Newton under pressure, runs away from that pressure. O'Kine can't catch him, and he's got the first down before running out of bounds at the 3rd. They'll call him out at the 35 when lineman defensive player first got within hitting range, I guess.
And I think we should be fair in saying that, when you say the quarterback, you can't hit the quarterback, all you got to do is tag him and the play is over. So there you saw the speed of Cam Newton as he was able to scramble out to his right. He had nobody open down the field, good pressure in the pocket, and he scrambles for a first down.
Ball at the 35. They almost drove for a touchdown to start this second half. Moody 3 straight carries for 65 yards, but lost it just an eyelash shy of the goal line and turned it over. Newton hit as he throws by Carlos Dunlap, and it'll be 2nd down and 10. Dunlap, a guy that they have, as we mentioned earlier, have such high hopes for what he might become and as a defensive lineman for the Gators, sophomore out of North Charleston, South Carolina.
And when you're Cam Newton, you say, wait a minute, the last series I got the first team offensive line. Look like I'm back to where I was, as he's got Jim Barry and number 64, Kyle Newell, at the tackles.
Yeah, but Carl Johnson, an experienced guy, is in there at left tackle. That's who Dunlap ran right by. This play is all jammed up. There's Patchen trying to pull it loose. Dunlap, Marquis Anderson, all in there defensively. This blue defense is pitching a shutout. They haven't given up any points. So what are you going to do? The 3rd quarter has just come to a close. The first look at the 2008 University of Florida football team. The orange and blue debut continues after this timeout. had some pressure to deal with from pass rushes and has not been his sharpest throwing the ball. We'll see if he can take this scoring opportunity on in from the 34, second down at about 9. Newton out of the pocket, now in trouble. Patchen got a hand on him. They don't call the tackle. And they'll eventually, well, you got to tackle them if they don't blow the whistle. And they threw a flag on the play, probably going to be offensive holding, but they're not enforcing any of those penalties.
Well, you know, the officials are in spring practice as well.
There you go. Well, I think they do that for spring games. Guys who haven't been referees perhaps get a chance to be a referee or an umpire. I mean, that would be a smart thing to do as you develop officials.
I think it's time to get the ball in the hands of Brandon James. We haven't called his name in a while. Then the slot over to the left.
Yep, he's to the left. Moody's all the way out to the right, but he's looking for James, and he's throwing it to James. You must have known something, but so too did Wandy Pierre-Louis, who broke it up. You shouldn't have told Wandy.
I tell you, I just realized that he's a playmaker and hadn't touched the ball in a while. Nice little route. The thing that he does wrong here, Larry, from a route running standpoint, is he gets too wide, which allows Pierre to turn and run with him, where if he goes right by that shoulder, he gets more separation, becomes an easier throw for the quarterback.
Well, it's one of them running back receiver things, right now.
Yep, but he'll learn.
Moody, a lot of traffic, not much running room. Patchen was there defensively. John Jones. Like Torrey Epps, 98 at the bottom of the pile there.
Now, one of the problems the Gators had last year was having some beef in there at that tackle position defensively. And, you know, when you start looking at Torrey Epps at 276, John Brown, these are guys that basically are going to continue to grow, go get a little bit bigger. And, you know, and they got some quickness at that tackle position.
And they were also going to welcome the guy who was considered the top D-line prospect in the country, Omar Hunter, a Georgia kid, Bedford, Georgia, I believe, or Buford, Georgia. Tremendous, tremendous talent. He'll get in that mix very quickly. You'll see. So Florida with a lot of guys on that D-line. It's now a matter of getting them all together and getting them ready to play at a very high level.
Well, I like what Coach McCarney says is, you know, by fall that he'd like to have 8 to 10 guys rotating. When you can keep those defensive linemen fresh and going after the quarterback and playing the run, you get into the fourth quarter, normally you try and wear a team down. When you've got that many guys that can play, that you're confident that you'll put them on the field, you don't look for that to happen. In the fourth quarter, you're going to be strong defensively.
And a couple of the losses last year could be traced to a defensive front that wore down late in the game. Auburn and LSU were games where Florida just couldn't get the stop late to finish off a ball game.
Well, you go back and you look at that LSU game. I think there were 4 or 5 times on fourth down they went for it and just didn't make it. So, you know, that's the difference in having quite a few players that you can run in and off the field so that, you know, you get those stops when needed.
And one of them where maybe they didn't quite make it, but we'll never know for sure, will we?
That we will not.
I know a lot of Florida fans recall what I'm talking about. One run by Hester where his knee hit. And I guess he's got a much longer body than most. Running left side, Emmanuel Moody. No running room at all for Moody as the blue defense stiffens. There's John Brown, another one of the Lakeland guys. 7 guys from Lakeland's state championship team a year ago are signing on with the Florida Gators. Stephen Wilkes is now a fullback. Paul Wilson, who suffered a knee injury during practice, is out for the rest of spring. Part of that group with Michael and Marquise Pouncey and Chris Rainey. Must be fun to coach that much talent at one place.
Well, when you turn around and look at a high school team that wins the state championship 3 years running, and the way that they competed, it didn't matter who they played against. They went up against St. Thomas Aquinas, which Major Wright played at, and they beat them 3 years in a row for the championship.
And Ahmad Black, the 7th member of that group, mentioned him from Lakeland earlier, but didn't want to get caught leaving him out. That's at least 3 sacks for Dunlap today.
And it just shows you the quickness of Carlos Dunlap. You know, we got a chance to see him a little bit last year, Larry, but just watching him work here in the spring, you know, he looks like a guy with a lot of confidence. He comes off the ball. He knows what he's trying to get accomplished, and he has the athleticism that if he gets trapped inside, he can still get back outside. You know, a lot of defensive ends, when they make that inside rush move and then all of a sudden the quarterback's bouncing outside, they can't get there. Well, this kid has the agility and the speed to do so.
And they've enjoyed moving him inside and out, just like guys like Marsh, Patchen. You see them rushing from both spots. That gives you another level of flexibility in how you want to attack opposing offenses in the fall, when you can have personnel groups out there that they may not be expecting, because you can slide your ends inside.
Well, you know, one of the things that, you know, the Dolphins used to do is in pure passing situations, they would take their defensive end on the right side, slide him in the tackle, and then bring in a pure pass rusher so that they had 3 to 4 guys going after the quarterback, and they didn't have to come with the blitz to try and get pressure. So when you've got tackles that can rush the quarterback, especially in passing situations, you don't have to make a whole lot of changes, because if a team decides they're going to run the football, you still got your front 4 in there.
It's a 4th down play as the Orange tries to earn its first points of the day. Less than 4 minutes remaining in this orange and blue game. Fade to the corner, and it's broken up. Wandy Pierre-Louis again there defensively, as they tried to get the ball into Thompson, but Wandy was there again.
Well, see what happens here once again, Larry. You see how he gives ground and he tries to get wide away from the quarterback. Well, that means you don't get on top of him, and the quarterback has to make a perfect throw. You know, where if he forces him inside and he pushes him inside, now the ball can be thrown high and outside, and the corner can't make any type of play on the football.
And that may be just what he's hearing from Billy Gonzalez over on the sideline as we go to break from the Swamp in Gainesville. 28-7 remains our score.
Talking with Mickey Marotti, in charge of the strength and conditioning program with Gator football. And Mickey, a couple of guys really made progress during the offseason. One that stands out to me is Chris Rainey. How far has he come from last year as a freshman?
He's come light years. He showed up last summer. I think he weighed 156 or something. I was almost like, who are you? And, you know, he had the, shoulder surgery before he got here, and just dealing with all that. And he really has worked hard and really has done a tremendous job, and it shows out there today.
Yeah, he's having a really good spring game. What stood out to you as far as strength and speed with him? What really did he have to work on the most?
I think the biggest thing was strength. I mean, obviously the natural ability of Chris had it. It's just the strength of his shoulders and his upper body, strong legs. You know, he's a big-time athlete. We just got to make sure that we get him into a progressive program, which he was able to do in the offseason.
Another guy playing well today in the spring game is Carlos Dunlap. Yeah. Maybe another guy who took to the strength and conditioning and made progress.
Yeah, he's made tremendous progress as well since, not even a year ago. You know, they showed up at the beginning of July. You know, here's a 280-pound guy back then that was maybe a little bit chunky, and, over the last 8 months, how he's transformed his body to what you see out there today is unbelievable. And he's a special, special athlete.
Is this the kind of game these guys can look at and say, now I understand, I get it?
Yeah, I think so. I think about the 4th or 5th practice during spring football, when they were getting knocked around or doing good things, either way, they kind of say, oh, okay, now I know what this is all about. And I think just getting in the swamp and with having all the fans out and, in a game like this, being as competitive as it is, it kind of helps those guys, catapult into the fall.
Thanks, Mickey.
Okay, thank you.
Officially 4 sacks today for Carlos Dunlap. On that last one, I said that's at least 3. Well, I was right. It was at least 3. Now Cam Newton's going to run the blue offense. And they fumble. He can't find the handle, and it's recovered by the defense. So first play with the new group turns out to be a Gator blue fumble by Mon Williams. 3:17 to go, clock running as we wind it down here in the spring football game. Nat, overall, your thoughts on what you've seen? What kind of football team the Gators are going to have in 08?
Well, I like what I'm seeing defensively. I came in, one of the question marks for me was how well has this defense progressed? How much depth do we have on defense? And we're seeing that. There have been 3 turnovers, a couple big hits where the ball's been shaken loose. So defensively, I like what I see. Now, offensively, you know, I don't like the fact that they put the ball on the ground. I don't like the fact that, you know, receivers are not getting open and not making the play on the football. You know, a guy like Riley Cooper, not just to single him out, but just a perfect indication, is a guy that, you know, he knows that today he had an opportunity to make several big plays. He only came up with one. You know, those are the type of things that you look for. And sometimes, Larry, what happens, especially when you don't have everybody playing, and you're one of those guys that have been one of the steady guys, you're just trying to get through today without getting hurt. So, you know, we shouldn't read too much into that with everything I've said. We shouldn't read too much into that because we know what Riley Cooper can do. He's done it for us, you know, several times. He did it as a true freshman. He did it last year, you know, early in the year before he got hurt. So, Dante Thompson, another guy that I came in here today excited about, really wanting to see him play, has had a rough day, you know, and it's not all his fault, but one of the things he's got to do is realize that he can't run before he catches the football. A couple times he tried to run before he caught the ball.
Well, they planned on having a continuous clock in the second half, but Urban Meyer's had the officials stop it several times, wanting to see more out of his team today. Maybe wanting to see some success offensively for this orange squad, which has not done much. They have another scoring opportunity there. Emmanuel Moody on first down, but only got a yard or two.
Well, and not only wanting to see more out of the orange offense, but basically want to see more out of Cam Newton. I mean, you know, you're looking at a position where we really don't know who's number two, and if anything happens to Tim Tebow, who's going to be that guy that you had confidence in to step in and lead your team.
Newton gets away from Cunningham, and he'll run out of bounds. And Jermaine Cunningham saying, I could have hit him. Don't give him all those yards, but they'll mark it at the 15-yard line. 2:10 to play, clock running. So Cam Newton trying to finally get a score on the board before he calls it a day.
Well, you know, he's had a rough day throwing the football, some drops, a lot of errant passes, but when he's decided to take it under his wings and run with it, he's had some success. And let's face it, this is an offense that the quarterback runs the football quite often. So if you take that away from him, then basically you're asking him to be a pure passer.
So first down at the 10. There's Moody to the 5, runs over a man, and he's in the end zone. Touchdown, Emmanuel Moody.
Nice job of running by Emmanuel Moody as he ran over Levi Lee. This time, Larry, unlike the mistake he made earlier, you see him keep that ball tucked away, lowers his shoulder. He just keeps running and lowers his shoulder to get lower than the defender, where before he tried to go over the top and stretch the ball out. Now watch it. Now, what you'd like to see him do, especially when he's taking on a tackler with his left shoulder, the ball in his left hand, get it more inside against his body so that it doesn't get knocked loose.
Emmanuel Moody had no yards at halftime, so he's had a pretty good second half, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Should be 2 touchdowns. He'll, I'm sure, be shown that fumble play in the video room several times between now and opening day against Hawaii in August. But the talent at running back has certainly showed itself today.
And if I'm Kenny Carter, I love the fact that he made that mistake, because you know what? That's a coaching point. You know, hey, son, we've moved the ball all the way down the field. You've had several great plays. You know, if you don't get it in by trying to get low and burst through the goal line, we get the ball on the 1-inch yard line with 1st and goal.
Not the end of the world.
Yeah, you know, and the good part about it is he can use that on all of the running backs.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a coaching, it's a teaching point. So I think it's all good. I think the best thing can happen today is some of the guys put the ball on the ground, didn't have perfect days. It gives them a lot to look forward to, a lot to work on during the summer. So when they come back for the fall, they're ready to rock and roll.
You know, there are 3 new position coaches for the Florida Gator football staff, but there's a new position on the staff. For more on that, let's go again to Steve Babbitt.
Visiting with former Gator football player Terry Jackson, now the Director of Community and Player Relations with the Gator football program. And first of all, Terry, good to have you back in the Gator football family in that kind of capacity. How excited are you about your new position?
Very excited. It gives me the opportunity to be around these guys, to try to give them a little bit of what I got here at the University of Florida. That was a great education, and just learning how to navigate through this university and how to make it to those levels that you want to go to.
Give me an example of what will happen as far as community relations and player relations. What are some of the goals that you have in this position?
Just to get the guys involved in the community. I think in my life, getting involved in the community, it helped me to become a better man, to grow as an individual. And that's what I want for these guys, to grow as individuals. And all that other stuff that'll come to their life, NFL, great jobs after college, all that stuff will come to them when they grow as human beings.
Now, being a former running back, I have to ask you, Moody, Rainey, Mon Williams, they've all trying to make their mark. Chris Rainey is a pretty special player, though, a big play kind of guy.
You got to love it. I mean, I was the type of guy I could break, but take it to the house, I may have a little trouble every now and then. But it's great to see guys out there who are game breakers. You know, you got the video game breakers. You got quite a few game breakers out there, and it's just exciting to see guys with that kind of documented speed get the opportunity to play on this field.
Terry, again, congratulations on the new position, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, former Gator Terry Jackson.
Tremendous hire, Larry. Here's a guy that basically what Terry's saying is, you know, he can talk to these kids in the layman talk because he's been through it, and the fact of getting them involved in the community, getting them to meet people and realize it's not just about football. That's not your full education while you're here.
When you talk about first-class student athlete, everything that's right about a student athlete, that's Terry Jackson, and to have him as part of the program in this capacity, I think, going to be a tremendous plus. While we're at it, congratulations have to be passed along to Willie Jackson Jr. Willie goes into the University of Florida Athletic Hall of Fame, joining my partner Nat Moore and many others, and what a terrific career Willie had for the Gators in the early 90s.
Well, a tremendous athlete that there were some question marks when he was first looking at coming to school here, whether he could play, and Willie came on and rewarded the Gators for giving him his opportunity, and then Terry did the same, and of course, you know, their dad, Willie Sr., was the first black athlete here at the University of Florida, one of the first black athletes, so a tremendous family that has done a tremendous amount for the University of Florida and still a part of the family.
And will continue to do a tremendous amount for the Florida Gators. So the final carry of the day goes to Mon Williams. And, well, maybe not the final carry of the day. Urban Meyer wants to see something else.
He wants to see a little bit more. You know.
Well, he wants to see Cameron Newton get over 60 yards passing. Maybe that's it. He only has 53, but for the Florida Gators, that's, you know, coming out of spring, the development of the defensive front, settling on the jobs in the secondary, going to be among the issues. Getting everybody healthy, particularly, I mean, you look at a spring game with no Percy Harvin. Lewis Murphy is healthy, but did not play today. Cornelius Ingram, get all those guys full speed. Jim Tart as well. So looks to me like there's a lot of talent out there in orange and blue. 28-14 is the final score in the orange and blue debut presented by Dodge here at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Florida Field. The swamp, kind of swamp-like on a hot